Hi and welcome to Football Friday here at Bay TV, our weekly look at the beautiful game. Two experts, two beautiful men, beautiful players in their day, David Fairclough, ex-Liverpool, and of course Graeme Sharp, ex-Everton. Talking about Liverpool, a team that seems to have given up on the season, David, even though they do still have a chance of Champions League football. Disappointing draw against West Brom last week, followed by a defeat at Hull. No goals in either game.
Yeah, desperate stuff. I think it's disappointed all Liverpool fans the way that Liverpool now seem to be winding down. You mentioned the chance of still qualifying for Champions League, and the fans believed that it was possible. And certainly with United have one or two tricky games before the end of the season, not least mentioned in Everton last week. I mean, there were great hopes that Liverpool might just scrape into the all-important Champions League spots, but to play the two games that they have done this week the way they have, I think has been very disappointing to see.
How can that happen at a club like Liverpool, where their primary target for this season was qualification for the Champions League again? And we've got, 4 games left, and they still have a chance. Why would they suddenly surrender that chance and almost give up?
Yeah, it's inexplainable, I think. Everybody knew that it was going to be a tough game last week at West Brom. You know, the style that they play was always going to make it difficult for Liverpool. But Liverpool had to take the game to West Brom and make something happen. A lot of Liverpool's good results and good form down the last year or so has been based on quick starts, getting at the opponents and really upsetting them and putting them on the back foot. But that doesn't seem to be there in Liverpool's game at the moment. Certainly wasn't there last week against West Brom. It allowed West Brom to bed in, make things difficult, and then West Brom were always going to try and steal something on the break. And Liverpool, really didn't sort of put up much of a fight in the end.
We talked about it last week as well, about scoring goals. You know, when you talk about, again, 2 clean sheets. And that is a problem. And if you don't replace Suarez and Sturridge is out again, you're always going to struggle. And never, whoever they bring in, Balotelli, who's probably surprised that he's actually playing, but they have not replaced the goals of Suarez and Sturridge this year. And it doesn't matter. If you go away to Hull, last year, Liverpool going away from home with Suarez and Sturridge in the side, you'd be like, automatically Liverpool will win that.
Well, they were blitzing teams,
yeah,
weren't they?
Now they haven't got that threat.
I think we sat here last week and thought on the back of the semi-final performance, which was awfully poor, everybody thought that maybe there would be a reaction. Liverpool would go out and show that the fans and that what they were capable of doing and actually make up for that disappointment. But to follow it with 2 performances that we've seen at West Brom and Hull in the last 7 days has really got people scratching their heads.
They took stick after the West Brom draw, and they compounded that by what was apparently a dire performance at Hull. They were lucky in a way because it wasn't televised, so no, but very few people saw it. But apparently they were even worse at Hull than they were at West Brom.
Well, I commentated on the Hull game, and the writing was on the wall early on. Liverpool's tempo was slow. It was too precise, too much in front of Hull. You've got to put these sides on the back foot. You've got to upset them. Liverpool gave Hull plenty of time to get men behind the ball, and to their credit, Hull got lots of men behind the ball. They worked very, very hard. You could tell the team who was wanting to get something out of the game more. And I think, although Hull started badly and were giving Liverpool the ball back at regular intervals, you thought, well, if Liverpool just lift the game a little bit, there's a win here. Absolutely no problem. But I think Hull grew in spirit when they saw how weak Liverpool were, and Liverpool didn't really put a challenge together at all. Obviously, then Liverpool gave a bad goal away, and once they had something to defend, Hull made it very difficult.
I mean, could it be that if the players and management have accepted they won't qualify for the Champions League, could it be that they don't want to qualify for the Europa League? That sounds bizarre.
Yeah, but I think if you're playing for a massive club like Liverpool, I don't think you can think like that. I think you've got to go out and win every single game. So, if your performances get you in the Europa League, you've got to deal with that. Yeah. It's as simple as that. It's still European football. Whatever way you look at the Europa League, yes, not the Champions League, but it's still European football, that come into Anfield. So I don't think for Liverpool they can afford to look at it like that. And I don't think they do look at it like that. I just think when you get into a stage of the season when there isn't anything to do, I think the defeat in the semi-final of the FA Cup as well has a massive effect on them, and I think they're suffering a little bit now. But certainly Liverpool fans wouldn't expect their team just to give up, and I think that's a disappointing thing. In the last 2 games, they're just, the fire seems to have gone out the belly a little bit, and Gerrard not playing as well, which I thought was a surprise. You know, so it's an interesting one, a really, really interesting one.
Stevie was held back for tomorrow's game, so that we knew that Stevie wasn't going to play against Hull. And I think you look then at and think, well, Henderson and Allen, can they grab a midfield and can they dominate? And certainly it didn't look possible against Hull. And I mean, and that's worrying really, because you look at Liverpool's 11 players from the Hull match. I mean, only 2 of them are probably definitely not going to be there next season. That's the body of Liverpool's team, and you think, where is the optimism for the following season?
So why was Gerrard not playing? Was he injured, or was
no, just the rotation.
I can't have that. I don't have that. I cannot see that. For me, still Gerrard. For me.
And how can the QPR this weekend be any more important than Hull away in midweek? I mean, I don't get it either. I'm sure you know. If you asked Steven Gerrard, do you want to play in both? He would have said yes. Of course.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the manager's thoughts is to manage Stevie in that way, but now we're getting to the end of the season. Managing Stevie's form and fitness goes out the window, and Stevie's keen as anybody to be playing all these games. Yeah, ridiculous.
Playing them all.
Well, you're looking at a player who hates losing. You know, loves Liverpool, wants to play. You've got to include him, especially when things aren't going well for you. You know, Hull the other night, Steven Gerrard would have made a difference with his attitude and his commitment and his drive and pushing people on.
If you've got somebody like Gerrard, you're not allowed to slack, are you? Because he won't have it.
No.
He becomes the on-field manager, doesn't he? And that's what they lack. They lack leadership. Jordan Henderson's he's an okay player in my view, but I don't think he's a natural leader.
No, I mean, there was no leaders out there the other day. Skirtle and Lovren have done okay and look strong in the midfield area, in the back line. But in the midfield, there was no leadership. There was nobody pulling it together. There was no driving players on. There was no sort of cajoling people when 1 or 2 things were going against them. Very early on, Balotelli was targeted by the whole midfield just to upset them a little bit. His reaction was poor, and they then realised then they had Balotelli in their pocket. I mean, he just didn't look right, but he didn't seem to get any help from anybody around, and that's what you miss when you don't have people of the likes of Steven Gerrard. In the past, we've had Carragher and stuff. You know, people who really get the troops going.
I mean, after the game, Brendan Rodgers came out and said that Liverpool needed 2 marquee signings. Most of my friends who are Liverpool fans said, what, only 2? The suspicion being that most fans believe that the team that's currently been assembled is maybe 4 players short of anything that's going to push the Championship next season.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I don't think 2 players are going to make Liverpool a title challenging team, in all honesty. The other night, you know, a lack of know-how, a real lack of quality. Really, you know, had you scratching your head, I have to say. You think to yourself, you're looking at Liverpool for next season, and I don't see any real optimistic signs at the moment, which is a great shame, because the season, from at one point looking like it may finish in really a blaze of glory, has now sort of just fizzled out. And you know, you wonder what you're going to get from Liverpool tomorrow.
I know they lost Suarez, and you can't replace that number of goals, but there's a fascinating statistic floating around that this season, between them, Sturridge, Barini, Balotelli and Lambert have scored 8 Premier League goals. Over at Everton, Jagielka, Stones, Coleman and Baines have scored 9. I mean, that tells its own story in a way, doesn't it?
It does, but I look at Liverpool ones. Lambert's not really been given an opportunity. You know, he's maybe had a lot of stake, but he's not been given an opportunity. But 2 marquee signings. For me, if you're going to win the league or you're going to be up there challenging, you need somebody up there that's going to score goals on a regular basis. Liverpool went so close last year, and if they're going to make a signing, I think they've got to make a big signing up front. We'll look at Costa, who's come into Chelsea, made a massive difference to them. You know, he's out injured at the moment, but he's pushed them onto the title. Liverpool, if they need to get into the position they were in last year, for me, they need to strengthen up front by...
Benteke? That's the one that's being rumoured.
Benteke, fine, if he fits into the way that Liverpool play. You know, you look at the Liverpool with Suarez, and it's not any long balls up or anything like that, so it wasn't... I think Benteke's more of a target man. Don't get me wrong, a very good target man, but the way Liverpool played with Suarez and Sturridge, it wasn't like that. You know, the movement off the ball and everything else caused teams problems. So be interesting to see whether he's looking in that area and thinking that's the sort
I think
of need.
of the 4 strikers I mentioned there, I think 3 of them will go in the summer. Barini, Lambert and Balotelli. I can't see any of those surviving the summer.
No. I mean, Lambert's been a little bit unlucky, I think, not getting any real opportunity from a player who was looking to be in the international squad, who'd made a little bit of a new name for himself. He's gone so far backwards. I mean, and the fact that he only is now appearing in the odd sub appearance, not every week. He must be really sort of disappointed actually how his season's panned out. He got 20 minutes the other night, and Liverpool in that 20 minutes threw 1 cross into the box. I mean, they're not playing to a style that suits Lambert, but there's every sort of argument, I think, to say that he deserves a little bit of a run. You might as well throw Ricky Lambert in now for the last 4 games.
They've lost Sturridge for the rest of the season. He's gone to the States with a view to another operation.
Yeah, because it's not happening for Balotelli. Unfortunately, I thought on the basis of Balotelli's efforts in the semi-final, he warranted a game at West Brom. But I mean, how many people have said it? He's an enigma. You just can't work out Balotelli. You'd have thought perhaps he would have sort of used that as a little bit of an opportunity against West Brom. He didn't, but he retained his place against Hull. He was shocking against Hull. His attitude right from the off was very, very poor. The tone was set early on, and he never got himself going.
OK, we'll be back after this short break to take a look at Everton's magnificent win over Manchester United at Goodison Park last weekend. Hello and welcome back to Football Friday. Chaps, you got decent odds on Everton beating Manchester United 3-0 at Goodison last weekend. Anybody have a bet? No?
No, I must admit, going to the game, I was a little bit fearful, more so of Fellaini and the form he was in. Man United in good run of form. But I have to say that Roberto Martinez got it spot on. He changed his formation a little bit, went 4-1-4-1, had Gareth Barry just in front of the back 4 looking after Fellaini. He never gave Fellaini an inch. Fellaini got booked early on, then get taken off at half-time. So the manager got his tactics spot on, and for many games this season, we've been asked to pick man of the match. He's struggled because the performances haven't been great, but it was really difficult on the weekend because every one of them put in a shift, and it was a well-deserved. I wouldn't say it was a lucky victory. It was a well-deserved victory because I thought they got it spot on the day.
They've been on a real roll. I mean, that's 16 points out of the last 18. Very welcome, bearing in mind where they were before the run started. But of course, the question being asked by Everton, why couldn't you do this earlier in the season?
Exactly. Again, we talked about tinkering with players and putting players in certain positions. It hasn't worked. They started the season very slowly. People put that down to like a poor pre-season, a hiccup after the World Cup. People coming back at different times into training. But I think in the last 6 games, it's been a more solid Everton. Look as if they've got that mojo back. They've got the camaraderie back in the dressing room. They've been hard to beat. They've been good performances from Stones, Jagielka, and Tim Howard in particular. So they seem to have got that mentality and the strength back about keeping clean sheets. But possibly on Saturday, 3 goals against Manchester United, and it could have been more. De Gea made a couple of good saves, but I just thought it was an all-round really good team performance. And the manager, who's had a lot of criticism this year, deserves a bit of credit for the fact that he changed the system. And with the system that he played Barry there, we saw more of Bartley getting forward in an attacking point of view, and McCarthy scored as well. So all in all,
McCarthy played well, didn't
McCarthy played well. It'll be interesting, obviously the game at Villa tomorrow, where we've done quite well in the past, whether he sticks with that formation or whether he goes back to the 2 holding midfield players. So it'll be an interesting one, but certainly against Manchester United, I don't think anybody had any arguments about the actual outcome of the game.
And it was, in a way, a fitting result and tribute to Sir Philip Carter, wasn't it? Perfect, really, I suppose.
Exactly. It's always difficult when, you have a minute's silence before the game and remembering, people who were close to the club. But certainly the players went out, and attacked United, or not attacked, let United have a lot of the ball early on, and just said, listen, as teams have done to Everton in the past, West Brom springs to mind at Goodison, they just said, have the ball. United had loads of possession, but never really made any inroads into Tim Howard in the back 4. So it was a really good team performance and a really disciplined team performance where everybody done the job that was asked of them.
From a Liverpool perspective, the sad thing was that Everton kicked the door open again for Liverpool Champions League, and they didn't take it. But I mean, you must have been impressed by Everton.
Very much so. I think Everton showed what you have to do with Manchester United, and you don't allow them to play. Liverpool didn't make a tackle against Manchester United in the game a few weeks ago, and Everton were the complete reverse. They never gave United any time. They closed them down. It was like the old Everton, and that's the type of performance that you expect to get at Goodison, where the fans were all up for it, and they seemed to put away that perhaps the thoughts that by beating United it would open the door a little bit for Liverpool. But no, it was an outstanding performance, and it was no surprise to see Everton 2 up before half time, because they really did sort of close them down well, and they played in the United half of the field, I thought.
And again, we had Wayne Rooney coming back to Goodison, who's still my favourite player in the Premier League. Just didn't perform again. Never does at Goodison.
Never got. I wouldn't say never got a kick. You know his qualities. He's a good passer of the ball. He can get on the ball, make things happen, but he wasn't allowed to. And as David says, it was a way that Everton set up and didn't allow him any space. Fellaini was the one going into the game. I was really, really fearful because of the form they were in, and everybody saying, "Oh, Man United are on their way back." Not from that performance. There's still a long way to go. I know David Moyes has come out this week and got a lot of criticism for what he said about the Premier League probably being the worst it's been for a long time. I think I'd have to go along with him. And I'm looking at a Manchester United side who supposedly are on the way back. I didn't see that at the weekend. I honestly
you mentioned Fellaini, and he's become pivotal to Manchester United. But he seemed to be so wound up against Everton at Goodison that once he got booked, he became a liability and had to be taken off, didn't he? So they lost.
I think the Everton players knew how to wind him up, and I think they were
It's
that.
not too difficult.
No, it's not. And you could see him getting frustrated. There was a couple of decisions went against him, and you could see him getting frustrated with the referee, and that just played into Everton's hands. But I would have to say, United brought on Di Maria, Falcao, and then they brought Van Persie on at the end. Now, those players, I don't know what the total cost of those players.
A lot more than the Everton team.
Exactly. And you would look at them and you'd say, we talk about Liverpool in the first part of the show about having to rebuild in summer, maybe bring in Marquis. Manchester United have got a lot of work to do as well, because those players I've mentioned there, Van Persie doesn't look the player he is. Di Maria came on and was very, very wasteful, and Falcao was no threat whatsoever.
And yet, we're being told that they're going to keep Falcao. On what basis? What has he shown in the last 9 months that would make you want to keep Falcao?
Yeah, I mean, he was coming back from a serious knee injury, and perhaps you think maybe he needed a good 6 months or so to get over it. I wouldn't actually write Falcao off, but it's the investment that you're making in Falcao, whether or not the contract is worthwhile. I think he's going to prove that he's still got the quality somewhere along the line. Whether or not it's the old Falcao remains to be seen. But no, it'd be interesting. I go along with the idea that I think United have an awful lot of rebuilding to do. The back line looks, poor, shot. I mean, and they'll probably lose the goalkeeper. I mean, much has been made over the Gay thing. I think he'll go. So I think this is going to be a massive summer. If United get into the Champions League places, which obviously it looks like they will do, then they've done well really to actually achieve that. I mean, it was a glaring opportunity for the likes of Liverpool and Tottenham to take advantage, because Manchester United, nowhere near back to the United of old.
No, they played the two boys at the back. Sorry, the young boy Paddy McNair, who I think in the future may well have a good career, but he was so far out his depth and made mistakes, and Everton punished him every time they went forward. And he was up alongside Smalling, who is not the most forceful of defenders and leaders. He's not a Vidic, or a Ferdinand. And they looked really vulnerable at the centre.
They've relied heavily on De Gea, as David said, and if they should lose him in the summer.
Well, they're playing Antonio Valencia as a wide right back, and he's never been a right back in his life. He'll do a job for you, but they have got massive amounts of rebuilding to do in the summer for me.
I'll tell you what really amused me was post-match press conference. Louis van Gaal comes out and says, "I realised we were going to lose during the warm-up."
Yeah.
Now, if you're the manager of Manchester United and you've seen something in the warm-up that's wrong, that you don't like, surely you do something to change that before they go out and then play the game.
You do, but sometimes you can get a feeling you know, just watching your players warming up, that they're just not up for this. And you can maybe get them in the dressing room before the game and say that and give them a rollicking, but it's just one of those things that you can sense it. This is not for us today. I just don't have the right feelings about this game. I could understand, you know, you can look through the warm-ups, you can see people laughing when you want people to be serious. You know, you can look at it both ways, and people prepare for games differently. But he knows those players. He works with them day in, day out. If he can see that, and the thing he said as well, that Ryan Giggs and his other assistant could see it as well. So I don't know what they were doing in the warm-up, but it's certainly a strange one.
Roberto Martinez has said after that game this week, yesterday in fact, that he'll be making 3 unglamorous signings in the summer. Now, if I was still working at Goodison and wanted to shift season tickets, I think I'd be pulling the manager and saying, I think you need to talk things up a little bit more than...
Yeah, it's a surprise when you told me that this morning. Unglamorous signings, you know, that doesn't...
It doesn't exactly
bode well. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But, you know what, I can understand, probably misquoted a little bit in the fact that I don't
think... It's in The Guardian, it won't be misquoted.
No, all right, okay, sorry, Ian, yeah. But no, I think what he's saying, it's not going to be any high-profile signings. You know, I think we've been linked with Cleverly. I think in the papers this week we were linked with Balassi. So whether he's meaning players that are not going to be over, say, what, 8, 9 million
He's going to have to do something, because I think Alcaraz and Distan are out of contract. It's debatable whether they will stay, and it looks as though Luke Garbutt's going to leave, which will be a genuine loss. He's out of contract and has refused to sign a new deal, which would suggest he's going to go at the end of the season.
Well, that's an interesting one for me, because Luke Garbutt's come in and did reasonably well when he's come in, and he looks a talent. Still got a lot to go, but again, he's got to be very, very careful where he goes. You know, if he goes from Everton and he goes to somewhere else, is he going to get a game there?
He should look at the case of Dan Gosling, who left Everton, went to Newcastle. He's now on Bournemouth's reserve team.
Jack Rodwell's another example. So he's got to be very careful. I know there's been links with Liverpool. So whether he goes there, I don't know, would he get into Liverpool's team? So he's got to be very careful what his next move is. For me personally, and I'm not just saying that from being an Evertonian, is the fact that I would sign another contract here, and then in 2 years' time, if it's not going, then decide what you're going to do.
He's behind Leighton Baines, but Leighton Baines isn't a kid, is he? He's not going to go on forever.
Well, Leighton Baines, Oviedo unfortunately had another injury kind of thing, so then you've got probably 3 vying for the same position. But it's healthy competition, and it's up to Luke Garbutt. Now, does Luke want to go and play, as you say, like Dan Gosling, go in Newcastle and then fade away? I think he's got too much to offer. So if I was giving advice to the boy, I'd say, listen, maybe your best bet is to sign and stay another couple of years and then move on, because you're only a young boy.
If you were in charge at Goodison, God forbid, obviously,
yeah.
Would you keep Distan or Alcaraz, or would you let them go? Now, Distan's been great. He's one of my favourite players.
Sylvain has been absolutely fabulous, a great pro. Personally speaking, I still think he's got something to offer, because he keeps himself incredibly fit. Yeah, he's probably not as quick as he used to be, but he can still shift. So I would keep him as a squad player. Over Alcaraz, it'd be an interesting one, because the manager brought in Alcaraz. He's obviously worked with him before. But for me, I think he needs to keep one of them. I think he needs to, and I think if you're asking me, I think he's more likely to keep Alcaraz than he is Distan.
OK, we'll be back in part 3 when we'll be looking at the vexed topic of ticket prices for away fans and the boycott which Liverpool fans undertook last week at Hull City. Hi, and welcome back. David, Liverpool fans, or section of them, boycotted the game at Hull in protest at ticket prices. And this is now becoming not endemic in football, but more and more fans are saying we are simply not prepared to pay these prices. I think they were being charged £50 a head, were they?
£50 at Hull, yeah. I think it's a good stance by the supporters groups. I think Liverpool do protests quite well, and they seem to bring it to people's attentions this week that you know, some teams are trying to
rip
off. Yeah, would be the general way of saying it. Yeah, I mean, you know, we talked about it earlier on. I mean, Burnley going to Hull, they're being charged £17 or £18. Liverpool go to Hull, and it's 50. It's not right, and they obviously know that Liverpool are going to bring a huge support. It's a chance for them to capitalise. Interestingly,
Graeme, Everton are playing at West Ham shortly, one of their remaining fixtures. and West Ham are charging Evertonians £55.
Outrageous.
The club has announced that they will be subsidising to the tune of £10 any fan who wants to go to that game. I think that's being split between the first team squad and the club.
Yeah.
They'll be paying half each. But I mean, £55 for a game at West Ham.
Outrageous. And listen, if you're going to the Emirates or wherever and you're getting well looked after, but we're going to West Ham, which isn't the best place to go and watch football kind of thing. £55 plus train expenses or bus, car, whatever. It's a lot of money, and I just think they've got to look at football clubs and say, right, okay, enough's enough, and I think, Newcastle fans and I think Everton fans had something together, the clubs had something together, it was only £20. And I think you've got to look after the supporters more. I think the more and more, we've said it for years and years about the costs going up, and we're losing fans, we're trying to do Everton are trying to do things, we're bringing kids tickets in, season tickets for £99. So there's ways of trying to attract the fans, but we've got to keep the older fans as well. But charging £55 for an away game, why should Everton or Liverpool, the fact, be charged more than Burnley? And that's they're categorised A, B, and C.
Yeah.
But that's
all clubs do that, but you can't tell me that West Ham Everton is a Category A game.
No.
With the greatest respect to Everton Football Club, it's not. All they do is they look at previous attendances. Everton always take their full allocation and sell them. Therefore, we'll rip them off. Same with Liverpool. Liverpool do exactly the same.
The sentiment that football is nothing without fans, I think is true. I think football in empty stadiums will not be a TV spectacle, and if you're going to fill stadiums with people who would say, well, they're just sort of like day trippers, so to speak, and not the real fans, then it's not going to create the atmosphere that you want at football matches. The real fans have to be appreciated and acknowledged, and it has to be, they have to be a part of football going forward. Football is sort of quick enough to come out and saying, how lucky are we, we're getting all this money, it's a great product, blah, blah, blah. And they are, at the end of the day, forgetting the key components of it. Who are the fans? The fans make it at Goodison last week. We know what it's like at Anfield on great days and stuff. That it was an event last Sunday, and it wouldn't be without without supporters.
Manchester City had a few years ago when they were going, when they're trying to get back into the Premier League, and they were getting charged right, left, and centre. I think it was at Birmingham. I might be wrong. They just decided, enough's enough, we're not going. But nobody went, and they said they've tried to make a stance. Liverpool fans done it the other night, and I think it's quite right. I think there comes a time when you say, well, whoa, come on, hold on a minute, this is too much.
You see, I think that the Premier League should step in here and say, unilateral across the board, all
Away
tickets
fans.
for all away fans are £20 at every ground for every club, visiting club. Bearing in mind, as you said earlier, the travel expenses and the food. You take two kids to an away game, petrol money, food, etc. on the way back there. It's £250, £300.
Easy, and they know they can get it, as David says, if they've got a big away support. And most clubs now have a big away support, but Everton will sell out their away allocation. I'm sure Liverpool will as well. Manchester United. This is probably something that Manchester United fans have had to do for the last 25 years. They're always going to get exploited in terms of price whenever they go. They're always going to be Category A, as are Liverpool. But no, somebody has to have a serious look at it and think, enough's enough. £55 for me to go down to West Ham. Yes, it's West Ham's last home game in the Premier League, but £55. It's not a fantastic stadium you're going to, so it's not as if you're going to exclusive seats and we're right in the middle. You're stuck in a corner behind the goal.
I mean, the fans need to vote with their feet. It worked the other night. It made an impact when you saw the Liverpool terracing. It was maybe a quarter full, and normally it would have been buzzing.
That surprised people because if you're watching a game involving Everton, Liverpool, Man U, Arsenal, Chelsea, the away section is always full. And most clubs are incredibly grateful that they take their allocation. Otherwise, they wouldn't have full attendances.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And yet the irony of West Ham, of course, is we berated her last week, is that the woman in charge of this is Baroness Karen Brady. And what did she say this week about Liverpool folk?
Yeah, just saying the fact that £55 and they don't cut the price.
End.
West End don't cut their prices when people come
For Scousers.
to come across. So
And last week she was appealing for all clubs to follow West Ham's lead and start cutting ticket prices.
Yeah.
And then they're charging Evertonians £55 to go watch what was a meaningless fixture.
it is, and as I said, and they've got the issues with themselves, and they're talking about moving into a new stadium, West Ham, and and attracting more supporters there, and they're talking about lessening the price and saying, right, but then you've got the other side of the coin with Barry Hearn, who's late in Orient, is saying, as soon as you cut the cost for Premier League games, everybody will go and watch Premier League football because it's better, and then that will be the end of the likes of Orient and people around that area. So it's a very difficult, situation to be in at this moment in time. I still think that they have to lower the price and look after away fans definitely more than what they're doing now. And if you say it's across the board, whether it be Liverpool or Burnley or Everton or Leicester, whatever, it's got to be the same across the board.
Well, if all this money is coming into football, it has to be thought about how it is spent, and it shouldn't all be just poured out on salaries and agents' fees and all that type of stuff. It should be for the betterment of the game and developing, the lesser clubs, the smaller clubs, the Leyton Orients of this world. You're not forgetting even sort of little sort of outposts, likes of Torquay and people like that who've fallen out the league now. Football has to develop from the grassroots, and the fact that the Premier League are taking all the money and are sort of distributing it the way that they are, I think there has to be more thought given to actually, making sure that the game remains strong and sort of there is an even spread.
I mean, what really annoys me is that everybody in football acknowledges and accepts that the ones who go to away games are the hardcore, the dedicated ones who will go to every game in a season. And they're the very people who are being penalised, the ones who actually are the bedrock of all great professional football clubs. Yeah. I just don't get it. Corruption raised its ugly head in football again this week with Delroy Facey being jailed for attempted match fixing. Were you ever aware of anything like that during your playing days?
No, never ever came in to the topic conversations we had. We were just talking off air before about, we always used to have the kick-off, and all it was kick-off. I used to be shunted out in the wing to challenge for the ball, and he used to hit the diagonal ball into the corner. I believe later on that somebody tried that and it was betting for the first throw, and that was never ever in our mindset. Our mindset was to get the ball down the corner and pen the opposition in. But certain things now, the way betting's going, you can bet.
I was going to say, in your day, sounds like, make you sound old here, chaps. It was they were betting on win, lose or draw, and that was it basically.
Yeah, it was. But I think David said it was Mark Letizia, I think, who mentioned in his book that they'd done the same sort of thing, and it was a case that somebody had bet on when the first throw-in would be, and Mark Letizia would be Mark Letizia chased the ball and didn't allow it to go out, and the person who had all the money on the bet for the first throw-in was going mad. But certainly nowadays, you'd never ever think of trying to throw a game or have any influence in the result apart from when you actually played.
As you say, the whole betting industry has changed dramatically, and you can bet on absolutely every outcome now, can't you? So it has opened up a can of worms, and probably some of these things have been, laughed at really, or scoffed at. But people have been, manipulating these events, and the fact that it's now exposed, I think, is good. I think it's. It does have to be stamped out. It's out of order. Clubs throw games.
The one that's always talked about in this neck of the woods is the Everton Wimbledon game in 1994. You were older by then. You'd left and already been relegated, I think.
I had, and I'd heard, and I remember we went down to Norwich, and it was Joe Royal who was the manager, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Everton will win all day long." He said, "How do you think that?" I said, "I know Everton will win all day. Just let me tell you, the talking Merseyside is Everton will win." And as that happened, they did
you got some money on this, had you?
No, I never. But I should have done. But when we got on the coach after the game and we'd been beaten at Norwich and Oldham had gone down, Joe came on the coach and he went, "Sharpie, you were right. But the most important, you never believe the goals that went in." I went, "What?" He went, "A penalty. Hans Sagers dived over one and Barry Horn hit one from 35 yards or whatever." I said, "Gaffer, I told you. I told you Everton would win." So that's always been a game that's kind of a big question mark over it, whether in saying that Hans Sagers was involved. But listen, I think as a footballer, I think it's very difficult, for a footballer to throw a game. I honestly do. I just don't think it's in their makeup. Obviously, it's not. But I think what you'd find now in the lower leagues, you know, when the money's not great in terms of wages, they might be tempted to try.
I was going to say, in the Premier League, players have no need to do this because they get so well paid. In the low, not particularly non-league football, you suspect maybe it does cross somebody's mind once in a while.
Yeah, when I was in Belgium, we had a relegation battle one year, and we were it got mentioned whether or not we should offer the teams that who were playing against our opponent, we should offer them an incentive rather than a bunga. That doesn't sound very legal either, does it? But it was just a bit of dressing room sort of banter, you know, that you desperate times sometimes call for desperate measures.
I mean, it's a shame when football's tarnished by this, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that we never encountered, but more and more is going that way, so unfortunately.
Okay, we'll be back for the final part in a few seconds when we'll be looking at the desperately sad demise of Wigan Athletic and Tranmere Rovers. Hi and welcome back. Just a quick reminder that if you wish to contact us here at the show, email is the best way. footballfriday@baytvliverpool.com. We would welcome your views, your opinions and your questions. Chaps, dark days indeed for Tranmere Rovers and Wigan Athletic. Wigan slide down to the third tier. Tranmere slide into potential oblivion.
Tranmere, we talked about it, you know, all season, how difficult it was going to be, and it happened last week. You know, the manager's leaving. They've had one or two players coming out now saying they should have maybe given the job to Alan Rodgers and Sean Garnett earlier. Easy enough saying that now, but the signs were there. You know, the signs were there a long time ago that things weren't right there. Okay, they had a new owner. Matt Palios took over. You know, tried different things. It wasn't working, and I'm afraid it's the case. See it all the time is the fact that to stay in that league, you need to buy players, you know, experienced players. But if you haven't got the money to buy those players, you're always going to be involved in a relegation, and it's caught up with them eventually, Tranmere. So it's a sad state of affairs. But the worrying thing now is hopefully they have a chance to get back up immediately. But to do that, they have to invest. Will they do that? Can they do that? I doubt it very much. So for me, very dark days ahead for Tranmere.
You begin to wonder whether Mark Palios is now regretting taking over the club. I mean, it sounded a great idea at the time, and I think he more or less assumed that they could at least steer clear of dropping out of the league, but they've gone.
Yeah, I think it did seem like a very good idea, an option. Obviously, there'd been some uncertainty of the takeover at Tranmere, which I don't think helped the situation. Peter Johnson clearly wants to hand over the reins. They had a potential sale that then fell through at the last minute, and then Mark Palios then came on the scene. So it's all been sort of going on behind the scenes, and as I mentioned last week, you just wonder whether or not, you know, really whether somebody really had the finger on the pulse at the time. So they've fallen into a precarious position, and I think it was a good move for Mark Palios to come in with obviously his business acumen, his experience in the FA and all that type of thing. I mean, he seems a perfect candidate to run a football club, but he's taken over at a very strange time in their history.
As you said last week, Graeme, if they don't get back first time, then they may never get back.
What Tranmere need is somebody to back them with money. You know, it's as simple as that, you know, to get out and try and get a chance. If they don't, they're going to be in that league. When we talked about it, Grimsby, Lincolns of this world down there, been down there for a long time, can't get out. Tranmere are going to go the same way unless they have a backer and a financial backer.
Yeah, but Edwards brought his players in, and then obviously once he had, you know, he was sacked. The new manager comes in, he has a change of heart, then sort of wants to replace a few, brings in all kinds of loan signs that he was happy with, and one thing, there was no continuity, and to break up the team midway through the first, well, it was just before Christmas really, it all happened. It seems sort of, you know, unnecessary really. He needed to probably sort of just, I don't know, maybe try and work with the players, get some stability, but there was too much upheaval. The amount of players that came in, I think it wasn't doing them any fortune. I mean, you look at the league now that they go into. I mean, you think of Chester and Wrexham are in there now. I mean, it's going to be a very competitive league. It's going to be very, very difficult to get out. A couple of big games for them to look forward to. Barnet got out this season. I mean, they've done really well because they only went down sort of a season or so before last. So to get out so quick, they've done fantastic, but that's a rarity.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Wigan will face an exodus of their better players now, and I put £10 on them going straight through that division as well into the bottom division. Well, I don't know why, which would be terrible.
No, it would be. I'd hate to see that. Again, just talking about the FA Cup winning side a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden they're on the slippery slope. And as David said there with regard to Tranmere, the same happened at Wigan. They brought in different managers, but and couldn't arrest the slide. Don't have a massive following, in terms of filling the stadium every week. You've got players who came from Premier League on Premier League wages, so they were in a very, very tricky situation. But, Malcolm McHyde hasn't worked for them. They got rid of him. They've got a new chairman in now as well. He's got his work cut out as well to stop that, eventual slide all the way down the leagues.
Just mentioning Tranmere, they have a testimonial on Bank Holiday Monday at Prenton Park for Ian Goodison. Good cause. I mean, I know testimonials are out of favour at the moment, but there are some players that deserve.
For 10 years, I'd like to think that everybody goes along and supports him. So it's a Bank Holiday Monday. It'd be a great opportunity to go along, and thank him for these 10 years. Like, he'll be as disappointed as anybody else that the Tranmere have gone down, but it'd be good to see him get a good day and a good attendance.
This weekend, Liverpool, I keep saying this, Liverpool should win. They're at home to QPR. If they can't beat QPR, they can't beat anybody, David.
Yeah, definitely things have to, make an upward turn. I think QPR have had a terrible away form this season. They've only won 2 games away from home, Sunderland and West Brom. So, I mean, West Brom, QPR coming to Anfield, you think it should be, a formality, but they're fighting for their lives. So they're going to see Liverpool potentially as vulnerable, given the last 3 performances by Liverpool. QPR are going to come and make it tough, but Liverpool have the quality. And if they show up on the day...
It's a classic no-win situation for Liverpool, off of Brendan Rodgers. If they win, so what? If they don't win, that will be 3 games in a row they haven't won. And they'll be racing to the phone-ins again to demand that he goes.
I think the wide open spaces of Anfield will be too much for QPR. I think QPR at home is a different, proposition. When it's really tight and compact. I think in the open spaces at Anfield, I think Liverpool should win and win comfortably.
Graeme, Everton go to Villa Park this weekend to face a rejuvenated Villa team, but a Villa team which I think are still in the measure of trouble.
Yeah, I think they are, but I think they'll look at this game at home. If they win this, they'll probably move out of trouble and steer clear of relegation. I don't think they'll go down in the long run, Villa. They've got a cup final to look forward to. Everton usually do quite well down at Villa in recent years. It's a great pitch, it's a great stadium to play in. They're on top of the form at the moment, Everton. The confidence is really high. So going down there confident of getting a result. And by that, I mean a victory, but I don't think it'll be easy because I think Sherwood's got a reaction from his players, and especially Benteke, who's going to be a threat.
As you said earlier, it'd be interesting to see what Martinez does in terms of a formation, having picked the right one against Manchester United, but it might not be the right one for Villa.
Yeah, I think he might go with the same formation because I think Gareth Barry just in front of the 4 protecting gives and allows McCarthy to get forward more than now. McCarthy scored the other day. That's his 2nd goal of the season. So I think that suits James McCarthy as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes very much the same as what we had at Man United.
It would be terrific for Everton, David, if they could finish the season with it's been a disappointing season, let's be honest. They could finish this with a real flourish.
Yeah, definitely, and it surprised a lot of people how poor Everton were for much of the season. But the run you mentioned before that they've gone on probably hasn't surprised too many. Actually, it's once you've got a little bit of a stimulus, a little bit of confidence within the group, then you go from strength to strength, and certainly they're edging in now into a position more that where most people thought Everton would end up. I think.
I mean, they could still finish top 10, which would be just about acceptable.
Well, they're 10th at the moment, Ian, and I think that there's a possibility at 8th maybe. I think Stoke are above them. I think I might be Swansea. I'm not too sure, but depending on results. But I think it's important. We've said it all along that they finish the season strongly and settle down in the summer, bring in the players they've got to bring in, and prepare for next season. But if you finish 8th position, it hasn't been that bad. It hasn't been that bad, but it could have been an awful lot better.
It should have been an awful lot better, shouldn't it? Okay, let's finish on non-football. Mayweather or Pacquiao?
I'm not staying up for it, but I'll go Mayweather.
On what basis?
Just because I've been listening to all the boxes that I've been on before.
Means you know nothing
No,
about it.
no,
but
I think but the boxes I've listened to on the television, I think the most are going towards Mayweather. So who am I to argue?
Well, I'll go
do
the
you
other
reckon?
way, just because I'd like to see Pacquiao win. I think he just gives off the right sort of attitude, I think. Obviously, Mayweather is a very confident type of fella, so I'm going for the underdog.
I mean, the money being generated by this fight is extraordinary. I mean, Mayweather admitted he was earning $200 million for one fight, and he's giving it all away to his kids. I mean, I'm a generous father, but I mean, come on, that's just ridiculous.
I think he's earned a lot of money in his career. You know, with the lifestyle he leads as well. So that may well catch up with him in the fight. But
I just suspect we could have a really boring points win for Mayweather.
I don't think it'll be boring.
No.
I don't think it'll be boring. I think it'll be an interesting fight, but certainly not one that I'm willing to stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning
20
to
quid
watch.
to wait.
It's
stay
not the
up
20
half
quid,
an
it's the 4 o'clock in the morning shout. The 20 quid's not a problem.
and they're flagging it up.
Yeah,
as-
it just doesn't work right for us, does it? It's going to be a long night if you're able to stay up.
I have to go for Pacquiao for the simple reason I can't be doing with anybody who speaks about themselves in the third person as Mayweather had started doing. So we'll end it there. Ian Ross has enjoyed the show. Ian Ross has enjoyed the company of David Fairclough and Graeme Sharp. And Ian Ross wishes you a very, very happy and peaceful bank holiday weekend. Thanks for watching.